Hello, everyone. Welcome to the fourth in a series of AgroVantage system conference calls focusing on various aspects of the AgroVantage system. As you're all aware by now, these calls have been occurring on the second and fourth Tuesdays of April and May. And on the last call 2 weeks ago, Isaiah and I focused on weed management, and this call included information on how to select the correct adjuvant for the different herbicide programs and the benefits of using the AgroVantage systems such as Bullseye, Wex, RainFast to improve weed control, spray performance, and get the most out of our chemical dollar. It was a great call with a lot of new information, and I encourage you all to seek out that replay online, as well as some of the other recorded conference calls as well. Hello, I'm Dan Willgohs, AgroVantage Marketing Manager, and it's my pleasure to be on the call again this evening, me discussing the AgroVantage system. Also on the call is Isaiah Akers, AgroVantage Product Specialist. Welcome, Isaiah.
Hey there, Dan.
And now for tonight's call, we wanted to focus our discussion on a rather new category of product, biologicals and biostimulants. And that term is somewhat of a hot topic right now. It's getting a lot of attention in the world ag markets and in the world agriculture. The term biological has been given to many products that use nature's own defenses and biological systems to help stimulate crop growth and safeguard plants from various stresses and pests. As you're all aware, Conklin has carried biological type products for quite a long time with the introduction of soil and foliar Excito in 1990. So it's not necessarily something that's new to Conklin, and we have been in this market for a while. And Isaiah, would you give us an introduction on the types of some of these different biological products and why there's such a buzz around the industry and buzz around these products right now?
Yeah, Dan, it's definitely something in an area that's gotten a lot of attention these days. I think a lot of that is due to just the fact that the importance of soil microbial life is being better understood, and the correlations that it has with a lot of soil characteristics and soil health, such as the texture of the soil, the organic matter content of the soil, and even the CEC. But I guess there's really two large groups of products that really make up those biologicals in the ag market. So the PGRs, or the plant growth regulators, and then the biological soil amendments that really more focus on that microbial life that we were talking about. There's probably some biologicals that fit into both categories, some PGRs and some soil amendments, and there's probably some PGRs that probably don't really fit neatly into either of those two categories, just due to it being such a large emerging market. There's a lot of new products coming out, and like I said, a lot of different combinations of different things and stuff that's not necessarily been tested on the market quite yet. A lot of new things and a lot of new developments. So I guess I'll kind of start on the first of those two groups, being the PGRs, or the plant growth regulators. So those are essentially hormones for plants. So those are basically naturally occurring, naturally available in our crops, even without application of a plant growth regulator product. And these hormones regulate several different growth systems throughout the plant. So similar to how they regulate growth systems in humans and different biological systems in humans, they do a lot of the same roles in plants. Unlike humans and a lot of animals, it's a lot more basic in that there's really just about 6 different types of plant hormones or plant growth regulators that are active in plants and in our crops. So I'll touch on a few of these. Not all of them are super important to agriculture, but so we're not going to touch on all of them, but I will kind of give a little bit of a breakdown of a few plant hormones and plant growth regulators that are responsible for different things inside of crops. It's going to be kind of a quick rundown. Obviously, compared to what we do in Pro Ag, it's going to be just a quick overview of just these hormones. So the first one that I guess I want to touch on, just because it's kind of a quick fun fact, not necessarily something that is commonly used in agriculture to increase yields, but is something that is used in more of the produce market. So that is going to be ethylene. Ethylene is a plant hormone that's involved with fruit ripening. So a lot of you might know that grocery stores, just due to the world economy we have in global produce now, they will ship in tomatoes that are picked unripe, or peaches from other states and other countries, ship those over, and these grocery stores will actually put them in ethylene chambers to help ripen that fruit up, get it to a more consumer-ready state. So that's a pretty cool thing that ethylene does. That's one plant hormone. Like I said, not necessarily something that we use in the world of agriculture, other than for that produce application. But then getting into some of the ones we do use, auxins. So auxins detect gravity in the plant, so they can tell a plant to go up towards the sun, and it can also regulate what's called apical dominance in plants. So that's essentially dominance of that highest top growing point of plants. Without that, plants might not necessarily know to prioritize that growth towards the top end of the plant. It does a similar function in the roots in that it can detect gravity or help the plants detect gravity, called gravitropism, allowing those roots to grow deeper down into the soil profile, accessing water at those deeper soil profiles, as well as different nutrients. So that's auxins. We also have GA3 or gibberellins. So those are responsible for cell elongation and plant height. Those can really increase the cell size in things like the plant stalk or the plant stem, really increasing the height of crops like corn, allowing them to grow taller and access more sunlight. Same goes for soybeans. Can also be responsible for increased leaf and root size. So we see that a lot when they're applied to crops like corn and beans. We'll talk a little bit about that later with our product called Intensify. But also they're involved with the fruit and grain size of crops. There's been a little bit of research that's shown that gibberellins applied to the leaves and to the crops can actually increase the size of corn cobs, the size of bean pods, things like that. And then the last one that I'm going to talk about today, the last hormone, would be cytokinins. So those are really just broadly involved with stimulating cell division or mitosis. So it can really get those cells dividing, increasing cellular replication. So what is that going to do? That's really responsible for increasing leaf and root size, just general larger plants. Something that's kind of specific to cytokinins too is their involvement with plant defense mechanisms. So we talked a little bit about how cytokinins, specifically our Excito product, which Dan will talk about a little bit later, is involved with the defense reaction to nematodes, as well as some other plant defense mechanisms. So those are some things that those different plant hormone groups do inside of plants, and kind of the idea of using a plant growth regulator or additional amounts of those hormones to stimulate growth over what the plants can produce by themselves. But kind of the other two big groups would be the biological soil amendments. Those work by increasing the microbial levels in the soil. So as we know, soil is a very complex habitat that contains thousands of different insects, worms, bacteria, fungi, and nematodes. And inside of those biological soil amendments, we can kind of break those up into two different groups. One of them being the probiotics. So essentially, these are going to be live bacterial cultures. They're going to be foreign strains and foreign species of bacteria that have been produced in a laboratory or something along those lines and are applied to the soil. Essentially, you're introducing that bacteria, and these are going to be like bacillus or trichoderma that are going to help break down the soil, organic matter, and things like your residues into things that are more available, ionic forms of nutrients that are more available. Some of the negative things about these mixes is that they can be kind of costly. Like I said, they are created in the laboratory in very controlled settings, and for that reason, these live bacteria cultures can sometimes be a little bit costly. Another thing to take a look at is with these live bacteria cultures, they all guarantee a certain analysis, a certain count of bacteria in that product. But is it really always what they're saying that they contain in there? Is that bacteria count always what is labeled on that product? As well as another thing, if you're introducing foreign bacteria, how do they persist? How do they coexist with those native strains of bacteria that are already in the soil? These bacteria strains that have evolved and coexisted with the crop types that you've been growing for several generations, as well as just the climate and the soil conditions in that certain area. But we kind of have a second group other than those probiotics, and I would like to kind of consider those the prebiotics. So rather than introducing bacteria to the soil, you're actually introducing a food source to feed the native bacteria and the populations that are already in the soil. So these are the same bacillus and trichoderma bacteria that are in the soil, but rather than introducing something that's foreign, you're feeding what's already there. We think that's a little bit better way to do it, and that those are probably going to persist a little bit longer and you're kind of helping the natural harmony of the microbial processes that have already been kind of adapted over time. So increasing the microbial levels of those soil by feeding them is going to help them to break down the residues that are left there after harvest. So things like your corn chaff, your bean pods, stalks, all of those things can help break those down into organic matter and then plant available sources of nutrients like N, P, and K.